Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Stretch! You can put it on the board! Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA, prime Angus, and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at uppercutchops.com. That's uppercutchops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100, 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for uppercutchops.com. All right, a big welcome in, everybody listening in on all of our radio and television affiliates. Everybody streaming also on Pick Your Favorite Streamer. And listen, folks, if this is the first time you're tuning in, you may have heard previously that there was a message from our friends over at Vacation Buddies. Listen, maybe you want to travel. Maybe you want to pick up a couple of nights in Las Vegas, a couple of nights in Orlando, or a couple of nights over in Branson, Missouri. And you could do so by answering this very simple trivia question. Which of these NBA superstars won 6 NBA titles? Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, or D, Michael Jordan? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Now, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights in Las Vegas, Orlando, or in Branson, Missouri. If you know the answer to that simple trivia question, 888-576-5777. Call them now. All right. Very, 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 very busy trade deadline for Major League Baseball. And I have to tell you, folks, some team just punched their opponents in the mouth, and some teams simply got sucker punched. And that's really it. And so you ask yourself, what really happened? Who got traded? Who didn't? And of course, everybody's reporting on it, even MLB.com. And let's face it, there were tracking deadline deals left, right, and center. There's a bunch of winners. There are some losers in the whole thing. And let's run down some of this in case you're just tuning in right now. So, the 2025 trade deadline definitely passed, and Mason Miller, Carlos Correa, Eugenio Suarez, Yohan Duran, and David Bednar were among the biggest names dealt. And you can find all of those notables, of course, anywhere online. But guess what? July 31st, who were the most active teams and who were the least? The Padres general manager, A.J. Preller, really just lived up to his reputation as one of the Major League Baseball's most aggressive executives on trade deadline day, making deals with the A's, Mason Miller, and J.P. Sears. I think Sears is one hell of a pickup. Mason Miller is one of those lights-out closers, and he has literally electric stuff. The Orioles were very busy dealing off Ryan O'Hearn. Kind of happy about that because I have him on my fantasy baseball team. He is my first baseman. So he ended up leaving, as well as Ramon Laureano. The Brewers dealt off Nestor Cortez, and the Royals, Freddie Fermin, to address all of the Padres' needs. I mean, man, that's a lot. That's a lot of people. So again, Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, Nestor Cortez, and Freddie Fermin all went to the Padres. Now, of course, the Mariners were one of the big winners of the trade deadline, landing the two biggest names as far as the batting market goes with Eugenio Suarez. So Gino's going to really add to that pop in the lineup. And of course, first baseman Josh Naylor, who's one of my favorite players. Man, this guy can just hit it when it matters. However, the Astros kept pace with their AL West rivals by reuniting with Carlos Correa and picking up a lefty in Jesus Sanchez. I think they did okay, but it was the Mariners clearly, in my opinion, that were the best in the West, in the American League, that is. Now, the Mets were extremely active as well, acquiring Ryan Helsley. He was the coveted piece from the St. Louis Cardinals, and Tyler Rogers, that submariner, and Gregory Soto. So they've got a submariner, they've got a three-quarters guy, and then they have an over-the-top guy as far as pitching goes. And they also upgraded in center field with Cedric Mullins. Now, Cedric's not hitting like he used to. He's not stealing bases like he used to, but he's throwing leather. So this guy is really good. But by the way, you look at what the Phillies did. The Phillies picked up closer Johan Duran and Harrison Bader in a pair of trades with the Twins. Seemed like the Twins traded everybody and anybody. Now, the Yankees also added a few guys, and David Bednar in the bullpen. Camilo Doval, which I got to tell you, folks, I am just completely baffled with this guy. He throws hard, and man, does he throw hard. The problem is he's all over the place. I've had him on and off my fantasy baseball team many times because he's not consistent. His walks and hits per innings pitched is not very good. But I'll tell you what, he makes every game, well, rather interesting. So that being said, I'm not so sure that he fits in the Yankees' plans, but I guess they just wanted another hard-throwing right-hander. I'm not really sure how that one works. And, of course, the Rockies, they dealt off Ryan McMahon to the Yankees as well, and Ahmed Rosario. And I'm not really wild about that Rosario deal. I don't think that was really a good pickup for them. And, of course, the White Sox dealt off Austin Slater to the Yankees, too. So the Yankees got a bunch of guys that, well, let's put it this way. They didn't spend a lot of money because, frankly, they don't have a lot of money to spend. Well, they do, but they don't, because you don't want to get over that magic number as far as the proverbial salary cap, right? So David Bednar, probably the biggest name in that whole group, and he is a pretty good closer coming over from the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I'm not so sure that the Yankees really helped themselves as they thought they did. I really don't think so. I mean, the best players that were not traded, let's take a look at some of that. And let's go to the starting pitchers. So Mackenzie Gore from the Nats was arguably one of the better pitchers. I think the best pitchers, the two best pitchers that were not traded was Joe Ryan from the Twins and Dylan Cease from the Padres. I think the Padres were just bluffing, trying to say, hey, we're sellers. We're going to listen to offers for Dylan Cease. But why would they trade their ace? That's ridiculous. Sandy Alcantara, I think the Marlins wanted way too much in return, and that is part of their general manager problem again. And I just, I just don't believe that the GM is doing it down there in Miami. They really need to get rid of Peter Bendix. Anyway, Mitch Keller from the Pirates, he did not go either, which was a little surprising. Zach Gallen did not go as well. Very surprising. And you got to figure that Diamondbacks were dealing players off. They got rid of two of their big bats, but they did not get rid of Zach Gallen, who's had problems all year. Maybe nobody wanted to give anything up for Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen was lights out last year. This year, I mean, geez, he can't seem to throw a strike if his life depended on it past anybody. Now, Edward Cabrera from the Marlins did not get traded. Luis Severino from the A's was not about to get traded. Jeffrey Springs from the A's was not about to get traded. Now, Sugano from the Orioles was a little bit of a surprise he didn't. And same thing with Justin Verlander and Andrew Heaney. Now, Heaney's had his go-around around the league, and I think people know that, well, let's face it, he's with Pittsburgh, and that's probably where he's going to finish his career. He's not very good. He's not good in pressure situations, in my opinion. How about the relief pitchers? So Robert Suarez from the Padres was rumored to go. He didn't go anywhere. Cade Smith from the Guard, he didn't go anywhere either. Neither did Halverson from the Rocks or Fairbanks from the Rays. But the Rays were buying. And Anthony Bender from the Fish, he didn't go anywhere either. How about position players? The biggest shocker, two biggest shockers to me, was Stephen Kwan. Stephen Kwan, they probably being the Guard, they just wanted a ton back, just like the White Sox for Lewis Robert Jr. And apparently teams didn't want to pay, and they said, well, we'll go ahead and make that deal in the off season if we want Lewis Robert or Stephen Kwan. Yandy Diaz from the Rays, he wasn't about to go anywhere because they were buyers. Same thing with Brandon Lau. And, of course, Brendan Donovan, a very good Swiss Army knife for the Cardinals. That was a little bit of a shocker. He didn't go. And Marcelo Ozuna, who has big pop in the bat, he may be a waiver wire deal. As when you look at the waiver wire, what happens in that, players that you wouldn't imagine, they'll switch teams with, I don't know, maybe 20-odd games left of the season. And then they'll make their playoff push, so to say. So looking ahead to the free agent market, though, that's another thing we probably should consider now that the trade deadline is passed. The next time the clubs will really be able to improve their roster will be the offseason, except for that waiver wire situation. That means every team has a chance to pick up whatever player that's out there. They have a chance to match the salary offer. They have a chance to pick up these players. And I mean, you're going to have some big names out there, such as Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker's a huge name. If the Cubs don't re-sign him, they're stupid. Framber Valdez, another really good pitcher. This guy needs to be re-signed. Kyle Schwarber, you know damn well Philadelphia's going to re-sign him. Pete Alonso, he'll re-sign. Alex Bregman's going to re-sign. Edwin Diaz, maybe an opt-out guy. I don't really know, but I'm not so sure about Edwin Diaz in the grand scheme of things. I think he's just a little bit overrated. Then again, there are these expensive pitchers that come in, these closers, and I don't necessarily believe that they are as good as the alleged analytics think they are. Because when you look at them, you ask yourself, well, wait a minute. These guys are only facing a few guys, maybe a couple of times a week. And you're paying them how much? Well, you could put a long reliever in or a starting pitcher that's not good enough for your rotation as your guy, just like with Dennis Eckersley. Anyway, back here in a few minutes on the Sports Circus. Lots more baseball to come. Don't go anywhere.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests, chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Excellent. If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UppercutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UppercutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by your friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, including our friends over in Atlanta. Thanks for waking up with us on WDJY 99.1 FM. Driving home with us over from Montgomery, Alabama, all the way to Columbus, Georgia, with that stick out there in Auburn. And that would be WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves, 1230 on the AM dial. Welcoming everybody else up and down the Midwest, right through the heartland, out to the West Coast, listening in. Driving between Las Vegas and Los Angeles on Interstate 15 on Highway Country Radio, 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM. And, of course, that's home of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Raiders. Also welcoming everybody up to Anchorage, all the way down to Honolulu. CBS Sports 1500 KHKA, that's home of the Yankees, 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And, of course, everybody else on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW, Charter, and independent cable affiliates where applicable. Same thing with Hotel TV in all markets, all Nielsen-rated markets, that is, across the United States, as well as Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, YouTube, Stitcher, Deezer, and all other streaming platforms. Oh, and by the way, nice thanks for everybody joining us on Chicago Food Favorites. Folks, if you don't know what that is, check it out on Facebook. Chicago Food Favorites, a fun group, a food group about your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes, and your favorite foods. Make some friends, have some fun. Join up into Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right, now that we got all that out of the way, we're getting right back into baseball. Of course, we had a trade deadline that has come and gone. And I had mentioned in the previous segment about the starting pitching that basically stood still. So Sandy Alcantara, who entered into the year really seemed like he was going to be the guy post Tommy John. And, well, it's funny because at the start of the show, we have Tommy John saying, "This is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus." It's funny. When I talked to Tommy, he says, "Why is it that everybody, when they hear my name, they always think of something bad?" Well, that's because he was the first guy to really have that elbow issue, that Tommy John thing, which really it is the ulnar nerve in the elbow, which is sort of tied to the carpal tunnel. You have carpal tunnel and cubital tunnel. It's sort of tied to the funny bone thing, right? So when you throw a lot of sliders and a lot of wrist tweaking things, well, what ends up happening, unfortunately, is you overwork that ulnar nerve. Well, guess what? Bad things happen. Well, and let's face it, when bad things happen, you end up going under the knife and you end up losing part of your baseball career. So, unfortunately, guys like Sandy Alcantara had that ulnar nerve situation. And when he came back, everyone's saying, hey, he was going to be the guy, whatever. Well, look, he wasn't dealt. Same thing with a really good pitcher in Joe Ryan. I'm really shocked at that. I guess the Minnesota Twins said, we can't trade everybody. We're just going to trade just about everybody. And it just seems like there was a U-Haul or something right out in front of whatever the name of that stadium up there is in Minneapolis, which is a really nice stadium. But it just seems like they said, well, you know what? We're getting rid of everybody. And again, guys like Dylan Cease and Zach Gallen, Mackenzie Gore and Severino and Mitch Keller, they were really the targets for some teams, but just other teams wouldn't really pull the trigger. Even the Royals extended Seth Lugo rather than swapping him out. That's kind of interesting. But one guy that did get moved was Shane Bieber. Now, Shane Bieber, probably the most accomplished starter that was actually moved from Cleveland to the Blue Jays. Now, he's just coming back from rehabilitation. But, of course, he's thrown in, well, all of 12 innings in the bigs in the last year and a half, the last season and a half. I mean, who the heck knows? Merrill Kelly was nails for the Diamondbacks in 2023, and that's the reason why the Rangers wanted him. But Texas is on the fringe of that third AL wildcard spot at the moment, and the Tigers landed Chris Paddock, who I'm still stunned that Paddock was even acquired by somebody. Because when you look at Paddock's numbers and you look at his performance when it mattered in situational baseball, it wasn't very good. Now, I was not surprised Charlie Morton was moved, because Charlie, when that guy is on, man, he is dealing. He is one hell of a starting pitcher. And so Charlie Morton gets himself right back into the playoff picture, this time with the Detroit Tigers. And so we're going to see what happens there. But you ask yourself, what did the market really revolve around? Well, it seemed like it was the relievers. So the only 3 top 100 prospect per Major League Baseball pipeline who moved at the deadline were all involved in deals fronted by relievers. And you think of shortstop Leo DeVries, and this kid is a 5-tool player. I mean, he is a good one. Going from the Padres to the A's, boy, I think the A's really got well in this one. And, of course, the Mason Miller deal picked up the number 56 catcher in Major League Baseball as far as the rank goes in Eduardo Tate. So that's another one that came over. And pitcher Mick Abel, number 92, going from the Phillies to the Twinkies in the Duran deal when Johan Duran went over there. And so you ask yourself, who really got the best out of all these deals? We're going to get to that in a minute. In an industry that really prized picks, and, well, like never before, for DeVries in particular, to go to a trade for a reliever was really striking. Since Major League Baseball began ranking his prospect over 20 years ago, there have only been one prospect ranked higher than DeVries ever to be traded, and that happened at the winter meetings in 2016, and that was Yoan Moncada back in 2016 again. So also striking was the activity of the Yankees, as I had mentioned. I don't really think that they did well, and they gave away the farm. They gave over 6 of their top 30 prospects in deals for David Bednar, who is, I'm going to say he's on the back end of his career, and Camilo Doval, which is remarkably, in my opinion, unstable. And then you have Jake Bird. So it seems like the Yankees probably were the big losers in the whole trade deadline thing. I mean, look, last year's postseason, relievers accounted for over half of all the innings pitched. So don't look for that trend to really change now. So the Astros, I think they had a pretty good trade deadline. They brought back one of their old guys in Carlos Correa, which is good. But I don't necessarily think that was a great move for them. It's kind of like a step backwards. Then again, I mean, should we be surprised? I mean, is this stunning? After all, a prominent member of the Astros' first World Series championship comes back, but who gives a damn? That's many years later. It's kind of like if you go ahead and acquire one of the old guys from back in the day. It doesn't matter. And then you look at, well, geez, look at the salary. And now you have to really ask yourself, just like that, you think of the Verlander trade with the Mets a couple of years ago. The Astros are getting more than $30 million in salary relief, though, on that Carlos Correa remaining deal. The problem is, look at the money that's still going out. I don't care if the Twins are paying it. The reality is, it's a bunch of money. And I'm not going to say he's washed up, but I am going to say he's on the back end of his career. So, I mean, the 2023 Astros ousted Correa's Twins in the ALDS despite him batting .400 with 3 doubles in that series. You're still talking a couple of years ago, and you can't live in a couple of years ago when it comes to Major League Baseball. You just can't do it. So, I mean, what about just trading Target Field? That's up in Minnesota, right? So the Twins totally collapsed in the last month, and I don't know, that team has just really taken a sideways turn. So they said, you know what? Let's just sell off everything. In the last 24 hours leading up to the deadline, the Twins traded 10 players from the 26-man roster. Correa, Paddock, Duran, Griffin, Jax, Brock Stewart, Danny Kalumi, Lewis Farland, Harrison Bader, Will Castro, and, of course, Ty France. Now, Willie Castro, this was an interesting pickup for the Cubs because they got themselves a pretty good utility guy. He's not a great player. The problem is the Cubs got a bunch of guys like that already in their system. And why would you trade for a guy that's not really, I'm not going to say he's a world champion. What I'm going to say is this guy doesn't bring what the Cubs need to the table. What the Cubs need are World Series champions. They need, in my opinion, they need bullpen. They probably needed a starting pitcher, which they did get one. They got that in Soroka. But the problem is I think the Cubs didn't get what they really needed. And so will they stay behind the Brewers? Who the hell knows? They're both going to probably make the playoffs anyway. But when you look at what the Cubs did and what they didn't do, the Cubs did not bring championship caliber players to the table. Now, Kyle Tucker is that guy already in the lineup, which is great news. But you ask yourself, at the deadline, what could they have done differently? I think getting a utility guy wasn't really what they were looking for. And then there were other guys out there, they just didn't want to pull the trigger. And maybe because they want to save some money for the Kyle Tucker deal in the offseason, and that's what it tells me. So the Cubs didn't spend a bunch of money or making these deals and trying to mortgage your future, because they're going to have to spend a bunch of money, first of all, signing Pete Crow Armstrong, and then they're going to have to sign Kyle Tucker. So that, geez, I don't know, that could be $1 billion. Imagine what Crow Armstrong is going to cost. He is going to cost a fortune. So the Cubs should try to hammer out a deal with him right now so they don't have to worry about that. They could probably hammer it out a little bit cheap, maybe save themselves, I don't know, $50, $100 million. I mean, the guy got a bunch of money as far as the ownership goes. So Ricketts got plenty of money. But the reality is you still have that luxury tax to deal with. When we come back, we're going to go right into Dodger baseball. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus.
Speak when you're told to speak and not before. You'll get your chance, smart guy.
What does he think I am, an imbecile?
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Excellent.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the MTV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows which could be found on all streaming platforms, as I'd mentioned previously, as well as check out the partners page. Lots of great partners over there, and one of them is our favorite. That's Al's Number One Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Al's Number One Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. They are the creators of this incredible sandwich. If you've never had an Italian beef sandwich, boy, are you missing out. Created about 117 years ago by the Ferrara family, and that's who owns Al's Number One Italian Beef. They opened their first store in 1938. They're still in business today, and they're still doing it. If you can't get over there in Chicagoland, make sure you check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com, and tell them the circus sent you. Man, that's good stuff. Yes! All right, welcome back to everybody. You know you are, TV and radio. And we're in the middle of talking baseball because the trade deadline has come and gone, and there was a ton of action. And you have to look at some of the teams, say, some of the teams really kind of stand pat, or they made next to no moves. And then other teams just literally entered the cupboards, kind of like the Minnesota Twins said, you know what, almost everybody is for sale. What do you got? They dealt off 10 of their 26-man roster, which is maddening to imagine. I don't think I've ever seen that. Yeah. And then you have other teams like the Indians, who we saw one of their injured pitchers. He really hasn't seen much action in the last year and a half or season and a half anyway. He ends up going to the Blue Jays, so it's not hurting the Cleveland Guardians. I think I said Indians. Anyway, I always want to call them the Cleveland Indians, but whatever. Cleveland Indians sounds a hell of a lot better than Guardians, if you know what I mean. So anyway, the Dodgers pretty much stuck to their preseason plan. So you could really understand what the Dodgers were trying to do. They're trying to repeat. And of course, what they didn't do is they didn't go completely crazy like the Padres. The Padres just said, we're going to go ahead and turn everything over. We're going to make a mad rush to see if we can make everything happen that we haven't had happen. Despite their injuries and whatnot, the Dodgers pretty much didn't stray from that mindset whatsoever. I mean, they dealt off their former rookie sensation from a couple of years ago, James Outman. They ended up dealing him off, and they ended up picking up a better outfielder in Alex Call. And honestly, they brought a reliever back in Brock Stewart, and that's about it. They just didn't really do too much. The Dodgers actually were sellers of a sort. So those people that thought they were going to be buying, like myself, well, guess what? We were all fooled. I mean, look, they dealt a catcher off to the Rays. Boy, the Rays were real busy on both ends of it, though. And they also got a righty reliever and lefty prospect and whatnot. And now the Dodgers also sent Dustin May to the Red Sox for an outfield prospect. And I think that was more of a future salary dump than anything. May was a pretty good pitcher. I mean, think about this. What they didn't do was sell the farm for Stephen Kwan, because Stephen Kwan would be an enormous haul back. And that's something the Dodgers weren't prepared to do. So when you think of these division duels, we say, how about the Tigers' 9-game AL lead on Cleveland that just engage in a soft sell-off? It might be just the only division edge that's safe. So out of all of those, you would think the Tigers are pretty safe being so far in advance. Now, while the Blue Jays are 3.5 games up on the Yankees, they did a lot of work to shore up their pitching staff in the final days before the deadline, and the Yankees, in my opinion, just kind of laid an egg. So the Astros might seem inevitable as they have a 5-game lead in the American League West, but the second-place Mariners, when they're picking up Eugenio Suarez and Josh Naylor, it gave them the sticks that they really needed in the lineup. Now they got some pop to go along with Cal Raleigh. And so you ask, well, what did the other teams do in the division? Well, really, it's just Houston at this point. What did Houston do? They brought back an old player, and they really didn't do too terribly much. So I think it's the Mariners that came out way better on that, and they'll be able to at least hit the ball better than what they were doing before. And now, in my opinion, they have a better shot of closing the gap. But how about the Rangers? Now, the Rangers are starting to play good ball. This is a very dangerous team, folks. And, of course, they added Merrill Kelly and lefty Danny Columbe. Now, Merrill Kelly came over from Arizona, and Merrill Kelly is no joke. So the Rangers are doing everything they can from the pitching side because they've got plenty of sticks in that lineup. They don't really need to go out and get guys that can hit the baseball. They already know they could do that. The most interesting one was the National League East with the Mets and Phillies. It just seemed like it was an auction where they're both trying to get the top players and the top players. So you're going to get this, I'm going to get this. It was the classic Yankees-Red Sox kind of a trade deadline, so to say, in history past. And so, look, both of these teams really had bullpen problems, so they both boosted their bullpen. Now, over in the National League Central, it was actually a relatively understated deadline for both first and second place teams. So the Brewers and Cubs are really only separated by a game. And when you look at those two teams, I mean, look, anything could happen there. But over the National League West, where the Dodgers' dominance just considered fate. I mean, look at it this way. Those guys are doing everything, but it was, of course, the Padres just basically burning money, making fun deals. And look, the Padres clearly, in my opinion, the Padres were the most active team and basically making moves. What it looked like was desperation. And some of the moves were good. Some of the moves were a little questionable. So you ask, who are the big winners at this whole trade deadline thing in the first place? I think Seattle. I mean, look, there was a lot of demand for Eugenio Suarez, but you can call him Gino. And so look at it this way. The Mariners now have a lineup that goes Crawford, Rodriguez, that's Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Arozarena, Naylor, and Suarez. And of course, add that to their already really good starting rotation. This looks like a playoff team no matter how you cut it up. And so the Astros, look, although they didn't sit really too quiet, they still made a couple of moves after Isaac Paredes became the latest notable Astro to go down with an injury. Well, you'd probably say that's probably the end of his season. And so they had to do something at third base. I mean, look, Alex Bregman doesn't play there anymore. And don't you know, of course, all the available options, they ended up being basically swerved in one direction or another. And so they really were left to bring back Correa. I mean, the loss of Alex Bregman is going to be one of those ones that they're going to feel for a long time. They should have never made that deal in the first place, in my opinion. But then again, that's just my opinion. And we'll see how things end up in the guarantee years for Correa's contract. I just don't think that was a good move at all. But it's certainly the Twins got rich when it came to picking up draft picks. But the Twins also picked up a lot of Correa's salary, which is a bad move by them. So you can't say it was a salary dump for them because they ended up basically carrying the extra money. And so the Twins are paying Correa to play in Houston. And so for Correa, he just goes on his way and he says, hey, show me the money! And I'll show you some baseball. And that's really what's going on with them. So you ask, did Houston do that good? I just don't really think so. I mean, look, you think about they picked up Ramon Urias and Jesus Sanchez. I don't know. Impending return of Jeremy Pena. Pena's a pretty good player. And hopefully at some point, the return of Yordan Alvarez. Now, I was reading about Yordan, and of course he's their big slugger, and he's been out. He had a hand problem. And I don't know if he's going to be ready for any part of the regular season. Now, he may be available in the postseason, but there is a lot of pain. When you're swinging a baseball bat and you have a hand problem, you feel everything, especially if you don't hit it on the sweet spot, especially in cold weather. When the weather turns, believe me, that bat vibrates, and if you hit it off the label or off the end of the bat, boy, do you feel it. Now, if you've never played baseball, you'd never know that, but I can assure you it does not feel good. So, I mean, the Astros, they don't look like they're particularly eager to let go of their stranglehold on the first place in the AL West, but I eventually think it's going to be Seattle. They did the right things to do that. So how about the Phillies over there in the National League East? I mean, look, as expected, bullpen arms were sent all over the place in all directions at the deadline, but none of them are better than Johan Duran, which I'm very happy about that because, of course, he's on my fantasy baseball team. Very happy about that one. So we went from a struggling team in Minnesota to a World Series contender. And this guy has been outstanding his whole career, but really, really, really good this year. I mean, he only has 16 saves because he was with kind of a crappy team, but now he's with a good team. This guy throws the four-seamer, averaging over 100 miles an hour, and he's going to be under lockdown at least throughout the 27 season. So Phillies, they really didn't just solve a big chunk of their bullpen. they actually handled it for the next couple of years. So the Phillies actually did the right thing over there. And let's face it, they had to give up a couple of promising prospects to do it, but the Phillies, perhaps more than any other team in baseball, need to win a World Series as soon as possible. Giving away prospects for a guy like Duran is a no-brainer, and Harrison Bader as a right-handed hitter who can play strong defense in center field. Remember, Harrison also played for their rival New York Mets. And so Harrison Bader is a fiery player from New York as well. He played for the Yankees, played for the Mets. This kid wants to win. I like him. He's a gamer. He kind of reminds me of an outfielder version of the old Bobby Grich. So Harrison Bader is one hell of a pickup, and I believe that the Phillies did very, very well at the deadline. So did the Mets. Back here in a few minutes, we're going to pick up with the Mets when we return. Don't go anywhere.
Someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Excellent.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today. Don't let your retirement accounts get caught off guard by trade and tariff wars. Learn why a Genesis Gold IRA is the number one choice for thousands of Americans across the nation. 800-709-4423. 800-709-4423. 800-709-4423. That's 800-709-4423.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the MTV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure to check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guest and prior guests. Also, check out the store. There's a tab right across the top of the toolbar for thesportscircus.com. It says store. And, hey, let's face it, a shameless plug for the Sports Circus. Pick up a hat, a T-shirt, pants, coats, all kinds of neat stuff. Travel mugs, coffee mugs, mouth pads, pillows, all kinds of neat stuff. And, of course, they all have that clever Sports Circus logo on it. And, of course, if you email info@thesportscircus.com, will tell you what that logo really stands for and how it came about. Of course, a shameless plug, again, for the thesportscircus.com's store. And, of course, we always get the super applause. Let's turn that up a little bit. Let's do it again. All right, that's just because we can. Just being a little bit silly, right? All right, back to baseball here. Welcome back to everybody, TV and radio. You know who you are. So I left off with the New York Metropolitans. Now, the Mets, for all their talents and payroll, had clear holes. Yes, they did. The bullpen, center field, back of the rotation. They didn't really help out in the rotation at all, in my opinion. And they took care of some hole, I think, in the outfield by picking up Cedric Mullins, who, look, he's going to look a little strange, of course, in a uniform that doesn't have an orange bird on it. But you got to look at it and say, this guy could still throw leather. He does hit once in a while, and he used to steal a lot of bases, but he doesn't do that stuff as I've seen of late. So I guess we'll have to see like everything else. But Cedric does plug a hole in the outfield, which kind of helps. But I don't necessarily believe that they did a hell of a lot more for the team outside of a couple of little moves here and there. Oh, yeah, they did add some bullpen help. And so you ask, well, what else do they really do? Well, look, Ryan Helsley, arguably one of the better closers in the game, but he's not going to be the closer because of Diaz over there in New York. And so he's just another option. And I don't necessarily think that was a great move by the Mets. I think the Phillies outdid them because think about this. With the Mets, they also picked up Tyler Rogers, the submariner, Gregory Soto, the lefty. And yeah, they're good guys for late in the game. But it's sort of overkill in the bullpen in the grand scheme of things. If you have able-bodied starters in the first place and you don't have a bullpen problem, like, well, let's bring in this guy, then that guy, then this guy, then that guy. All you're doing is you're making it, in my opinion, a little bit harder to win baseball games by gambling on, you think about probability, right? So if you have one guy going front to back, and let's say he's having a good game. Well, if he's in there dealing, well, guess what happens? That guy finishes the game, or maybe you bring one guy in the back end. But now if you have a starter that goes 5 innings, go to the minimum, and then every inning beyond that, there's a different person. Now there's that many more possibilities for something to go wrong. And I think it's the wrong approach in baseball. They do it today. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. And when you've got all these arms, you burn through your bullpen. Well, they can't pitch for another 3 or 4 days. Well, how does that work? So when your starter doesn't go deep, what happens is your bullpen gets burnt out. Dog days of summer. Where are we at? We're at August. This is exactly what happens at this time of year. And this is where teams that have big leads in their divisions, they suddenly start fading away. And now it becomes a race again. So you ask, from August until the end of the season, how many teams have lost a first place lead? Even a sizable one. Many have lost. And so I don't necessarily believe that the Mets are that much better off. I just really think that the Phillies got one over on them at the deadline. So let's go over to the Padres. As a big winner, apparently, look, the Padres gave up a lot at the deadline, and I mean a lot. And if you're the sort of person that breaks down every trade by WAR produced over the next decade, well, yeah, you're probably going to think that Preller is insanely rash. And, well, let's face it, to trade away one of the 3 best prospects in baseball for Mason Miller and J.P. Sears, they're going to say, well, hey, was that really a good deal? I don't know about that. I almost think that they got their money's worth with Mason Miller and J.P. Sears. Sears is solid. He eats innings, and Miller is a lights-out closer. So now he's going to be on a team that is already good. Now they're better. Preller, though, bless his heart, thinking about him, is doing what all fans want their teams and their leaders to do. Go out, get the guys that we're supposed to get are going to help the team, and let's go win a World Series. And I think that is what at least Preller has done with the San Diego Padres. And I like the Padres. It's a fun team. They're exciting. And look, with the addition of guys like Miller and Sears and Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano and Freddie Fermin, Will Wagner, and of course, hey, think about Nestor Cortez. Preller went out and tried to do what every city of San Diego resident or fan wants them to do, and they badly want a championship. And I don't see any team that really doesn't want a championship, but there are some teams that are willing to roll the dice and really put their you-know-whats on the chopping block and say, let's go ahead and let's make it happen. Because what's the worst that can happen? All right, we don't win, we compete, we have some fun, and let's face it, we have loyal fans. That means we're going to do what? We're going to sell tickets. Why are we going to sell tickets? Because we prove year in and year out we're willing to put it all on the line and make a deal. So a lot of these players will make moves, but you got to realize, folks, you're driving, you're listening, you're sitting at home, you're listening, you're mobile, you're listening. The point is, when these GMs and owners make the deals, you got to realize they're making the deals not only to win, but largely to put butts in seats. So when they do that, they make money. And when they make the money, they're trying to share it a little bit by sharing in with other players, by bringing the players to keep the fan base loyal. And what does that keep them do? It keeps them coming to the games, keeps them watching on TV, paying for those packages, whatever they have at this company or that company. It keeps them buying the hats, T-shirts, jerseys, batting gloves, stuffed toys, whatever the hell it is, right? The baseball bats, the baseballs, all kinds of stuff. It keeps their fan base loyal. And that is what Preller is really doing. And I got to tell you, I'm going to hand it to him. This guy, he really knows what he's doing. Let's give him a nice round of applause. So there aren't many owners that actually do that. There aren't many general managers that do that. And not a lot of GMs actually have the latitude to make deals in the first place. I mean, I think of guys like Perry Manassian over in Anaheim, and I just shake my head. Artie Moreno seemingly just doesn't let this guy do what he needs to do. And it's amazing that they win any games in the first place. I'm shocked. Now, over in San Francisco, his brother, Zach Manassian Jr., has the opportunity to make deals. But it just seems like Perry's the odd man out because Artie, in my opinion, Artie Moreno, seems to keep getting in the way over and over and over. He just won't let Perry make the deals. And I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the fan base. I'm not a big fan of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, of Orange County, of Interstate 5, of the Orange Curtain, of the Santa Ana Riverbed, whatever. Longest name in baseball, the LA Angels. I feel bad for the fan base because they have been done like this ever since Artie has taken the team. Remember, they could have dealt off Ohtani. They got nothing for Ohtani. They could have dealt off Mike Trout. Guess what? Mike Trout is nearing the end of his career, and his career has gone to Anaheim just to die in the first place. That's right. That, in my opinion, is Mike Trout's career. 3-time MVP and all that stuff just flushed right down the toilet because of the mismanagement, in my opinion, of Artie Moreno. Just a terrible, terrible situation. And when I look at it, I say, well, all right, so Perry's one of those guys that couldn't make deals. How about the Athletics? Now, of course, they're going to be the Vegas A's at some point real soon. And I think it's 2027, 2028, whatever. But think about this. Every team at the deadline really approaches, and the teams or whatever, and the reporters who cover them, they try to warn fans, don't expect any big prospect hauls. So it's just so rare. And the way the front offices act right now, well, to see a top 50 or even a top 100 prospect shipped out, there are just too many moving parts and too much long-term risk. Well, about that. So the A's just got Major League Baseball's number 3 prospect. That's right, in all of baseball. And of course, we give them an astounding round of applause because the A's did the unthinkable. And that, of course, is, due to the Preller's aggressiveness in San Diego. And in the most glorious way, bringing in shortstop Leo DeVries. 18-year-old kid, switch hitter, talent dripping. And this guy is legit. But it hurts to lose Miller. But, of course, he is a relief pitcher. That means there's more of those guys out there. But DeVries, who may be closer to the majors than we all may think, lines up perfectly for a team that has young hitters. And when I say young hitters, we're talking guys like Kurtz, we're talking guys like Rooker, we're talking about guys, just the list goes on and on. There's another one I'm thinking of. I'm trying to remember his name, but boy, he's a real gamer out there. And the A's are loaded. By the time they get to Las Vegas, they are going to be one very, very, very good squad. And they'll be dripping, of course, with all these big bats. And when they come to Vegas, they're going to be knocking the cover off the ball. So let's take a quick look at the standings real quick, just before we run out of time here on the circus. And so, again, it's the Blue Jays who made a couple of deals, are 3.5 up on the Yankees, 5 on the Red Sox. Over in the Central, it's Detroit with a 9-game lead over Cleveland, 9.5 over Kansas City. Kansas City's not done yet. Although they're 1 game under, they've got a run left in them. Now, the Houston Astros sit 5 ahead of Seattle. I don't think that's going to last for very long, and 5 ahead of Texas. I just don't think that one's going to stick around. I think it's going to be Seattle, then Houston, then Texas in that division. Over in the National League, it's the Mets. They are a half a game over the Phillies. I don't think that's going to last. I think the Phillies are going to overtake them now that they solved one of their big issues in the bullpen. Miami is too far back at 9 off the pace. They're not going anywhere. Over in the Central, it's the Brewers, a game ahead of the Cubs, and 7.5 ahead of the Cincinnati Reds. And the Reds are sitting at about 4 games over 500, where I said they would end up at the end of the season. And so far, they're 109 games in with 162 total. Well, guess what? I think they're going to end up right at that 4 games over. They're 110 games in, that is. The Cardinals too far off the pace. Over in the West is the Dodgers, only 3 over the Padres. And it looks like the Dodgers are going to have their hands full with these Padres because they can pitch the ball and they can hit as well. Whereas the Dodgers play a little bit more station-to-station baseball like the Yankees do. But watch the Padres because they may sneak in and steal that National League West division. In any event, all things are going to get a little bit crazy over the next month or so. And looking at the wild card real quick, you've got, well, the Yankees and Red Sox are a couple of games up or so on everybody else. In the American League and the National League, it is the Cubs and Phillies, and the Padres holding the last spot. So, look, those are likely going to be your playoff teams. We'll see what happens here in the next coming weeks. All right, folks, that's going to do it here for the Sports Circus. We're going to see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.